Is this rage bait? What happens when people are buying land in good faith? People develop these lands. Why do ordinary people always seem to carry the consequences? So today we are going to do something a little bit different from what I normally do, because if you can see, if you have been watching my content, you already know that I normally like to go on a deep dive historic context of certain topics and get to research more and spend, like, mostly I would spend the week, my off time, my off work time that I'll have, like my lunchtime, or the time after work. I like to research my topics and do a deep dive in them. And at the end of the day, I try to to philosophize so that I don't have a side. I'll just be standing in between and opening up questions so that conversations can go forward. So today, like I said, I'm going to do something different, and it's not much different. So don't run away. It's going to be something a little bit different. So, as I said, we are going to talk about three stories that caught my attention today, that caught my attention this week. So I'm going to try to do this probably maybe every week and give you a breakdown of what caught my attention, or give you some stories that caught my attention in a week, on a weekly basis. And I'll try to release the video on a Friday. I don't know if you would like to see me or see my mug on a Friday. And then on Tuesday, every week, I will be releasing the normal context matters video, the normal matter of context videos that I always do. So these three stories are like this. I've got two stories from Zimbabwe, and then I've got one story from South Africa, because I know there's so many people that will be like, okay, you as Zimbabwean, why are you always talking about South Africa? But there are some videos on my channel that I've been speaking about Zimbabwe, and right now, as I'm starting to get more viewers from Zimbabwe, now I have to broaden my horizon and broaden my scope, so I can be able to give you a little bit more when it comes to the content that I make. We are not here for outrage. We are going to be here for context, as always. So the first story that I'm going to be talking about is about the ZRP, the Zimbabwe Republic Police, getting new motorcycles. I'm going to just read this story, pick a few nuggets on this story so that we can speak about this. The second story is going to be about President Cyril Ramaphosa finally speaking out about the xenophobic attacks in South Africa. So stick around for that one. And then the last story that I'm going to be talking about, something that I've been flooding my Facebook feed, is about the Harare demolition notices. We're also going to be talking about that, and then we're going to go into detail about what we know so far and what is going on right now in Zimbabwe. So stick around for that one. But first, let's talk about the ZRP receiving motorcycles. Let's talk about this. But first, let's just look at this post on Facebook and get some context. So this post was posted yesterday, from the day of recording. Right now, I'm recording today on a Thursday. So it's from Star FM. They've been very big on social media lately. They've been updating on social media a lot, on Facebook specifically. So it says, ZRP Commissioner Stephen Mutamba has commissioned a batch of motorcycles for urban centers policing, road patrol, and traffic enforcement throughout the country. The bikes will be allocated to police stations for effective management of scene attendance, crime management, general and specific patrol, tackling reckless driving conduct on the roads, CC ZRP. So I think this came straight from the ZRP, and then they were posting for the ZRP. So on the images, as you can see, the first image is of the commissioner and other police officers, ranking members, looking at the bikes, and I think this is like one of the bigger bikes, and then there are a few smaller bikes that are here. And then the reason why I was saying that this looks a little bit fishy is because they look so uniform, and this looks like generative AI. That's what it normally does. It normally just repeats the same thing over and over again. So let's just read in the comment section and see what people are saying about this story. So the first the first comment is saying that Makombi ajapera alright kwacho. So for those who do not understand Shona, they are saying that the taxis or the minibuses are going to be finished because a backstory. There's a backstory to this. There's always a fight between the police and the minibus taxis in Harare. In Zimbabwe as a whole, they've been always. I think this is like an African thing, which they will always be fighting with the law enforcement. And then the second comment, it says it is the highlight of the year. Like I actually wanted to talk about this and say that how is this really making news? Like, how is this making national news that a bunch of motorcycles have been handed to police stations? Like, how is this supposed to be making news? Like, so that's why this person is talking about. And then the next person also says that Zimbabwe is a joke. Like, because like people are laughing, like especially people who are in the diaspora will be laughing about this. Like, especially like for people who are in South Africa, who sometimes we don't even know when new vehicles have been dispatched to police stations. Like, there are a lot of vehicles in South Africa and other countries outside developed countries and some developing countries. So it is laughable when you are looking at this from outside, but when you're looking at this from inside Zimbabwe, you understand that it is actually something that makes. Sometimes you even get a ribbon cutting being done by the mayor, or like you can see here, it's like the commissioner, like the highest ranking police officer, is the one who is now doing this. So, and then there's another comment that I saw here that also is talking about AI. It's like it's only one bike, the rest is AI. People are just going to be talking about this in this way because it's not something that is supposed to be making news, but this is Zimbabwe, and it's everything makes news. Even a small dustbins that are being distributed, that will be distributed in the city center, will be making news. So it is something that can make news. So there are most comments about this. I'm going to put this video I'm going to put this link in the description, but I think if you go to this, you will be able to see and read this comment section and be able to acquaint yourself with what people are talking about. So it is important it is very important because policing has been a problem, and traffic enforcement in Zimbabwe has been a big thing because of the infrastructure in Zimbabwe is not good. Some line markings do not even show up. Some line markings are not even there. I'm sure you have seen a lot of videos about this. I'm sure you've seen photos about this on the social media, memes about how bad the roads are in Zimbabwe. So it is one thing to want to enforce policing and enforce the traffic rules, but I think the number one thing, I think I said in one of my older videos, that the most important thing that we need to look at is infrastructure. And this is not the first time that the police have been given these toys, like somebody said in one of the comments, that toys. So they have got vehicles, they were given cars, they were given bikes, and it's something that we need to be looking at and say, okay, why are we investing in these things? Why can't we invest in the real infrastructure? Let's invest in traffic lights. Let's invest in a road markings and fixing potholes and stuff like that. It is very important. And on the plus side, I would say that policing is actually hard when it comes to rural areas, because there are rural areas that are very remote where the police station will be like, I would say 5-10 kilometers away from where the crime was committed. So it will be very, very difficult for the police to make it in time to a crime scene before it was tampered with, or to make it in time to catch somebody who has committed crime. And also, I think you are hearing me talking about crime scenes and policing and traffic management. In Zimbabwe, there's only one police. There is the Zimbabwe Republic Police, which is a one branch, one big umbrella of policing in Zimbabwe, and that is what we have in Zimbabwe. And they do everything from investigations, visible policing, crime stop, crime scenes, and traffic. they do almost everything that the police are doing. And then there's also, I think, municipality enforcers, law enforcement is also there, but they don't have as much power as compared to maybe law enforcement in South Africa. They don't have much power. They're just like, I would say, without any disrespect, they're like security guards. So I have a question. Is this a meaningful improvement, as I have said? Is this a meaningful improvement to policing, or merely optics? As we already know, we have spoken about this in the previous video about CAP 3 and what is going on. So sometimes the politics in Africa is always like this. They always come with a little bit of sugar, a little bit of honey there and here, and make some big announcements, or make some big developments, or make some donations here and there, and to just get people to think that there is something that is actually happening. Because most people, they're not even looking back at what exactly was promised when this administration took office. And are we already getting these? Did we get these promises that were being promised? The development, the infrastructure development, the job creations that were offered, were being told that they are going, that were being promised during campaign, and health and education, all these things that were being promised during campaign. Did we have these things yet? So we need to ask about this. Now let's move to the next story, and this story is from South Africa, where another debate refuses to go away. Let's watch this. So just to get a backstory, the president hasn't said much when it comes to the xenophobic attacks since this thing started, since the March movement started. He hasn't really said anything by himself. I'm sure maybe one or two posts have been posted on the presidency or the ANC official page, but directly from the president's mouth, President Cyril Ramaphosa, we haven't heard anything yet. So this is like this is the first that we will hear President Cyril Ramaphosa speak about this. So let's hear what the president was saying about the xenophobic attacks in South Africa.
South Africans are not xenophobic. South Africans are Africans. They want to live with other Africans peacefully, and our people are calling on us as leaders to resolve the many challenges that are brought to bear by the challenge of migration. And I did say that as South Africa we are addressing this matter, and I was rather pleased that you had good understanding on this issue as well.
So this is what the president said. So the president of South Africa was saying this while he was in Kenya. He spoke about this, saying that South Africans are not xenophobic. And I said this in one of my previous videos, that I got a lot of support from South Africans, and I didn't get as much support when it comes to my fellow Zimbabweans. But anyway, this rhetoric of xenophobia has been something that has been like affecting, like lately. I think I saw somewhere where, I don't know how true that is, that somebody was saying that the mining license of some mine that is in Ghana has been revoked for renewal or something like that. I don't know how true that is, because I didn't really fact check that story and follow that story at the moment, since I was working on the video that I'm working on right now. So I didn't get a lot of time to research much of what I'm going to be talking about on this video. So a lot of what I'm going to be doing on this is going to be just reactions, and here and there I will be talking about nuances if there's something that I need to speak out about. It is something that I think, if you are looking at it, like I said in one of the videos, if you're looking at it from a certain angle or from a certain area, there are like two polar opposite ideas and two polar opposite conversations when it comes to this. There is a side of South Africans who are saying, but this that is going on right now, the march and march protest and stuff like that, has got nothing to do with every foreigner. It only has something to do with immigrants that are illegal in South Africa. And we have another side that will be like, okay, but there are some videos, there is some rhetoric that has been recorded or seen on the social media from the leaders of this march, people who are in front of this march. I'm not so sure who is exactly part of, or some people will just be on it because they have gained clout. But from Jacinta Ngobesi, there are videos that you can see harassing and other Africans who are even legal. And there are even some videos of South African Venda people, Tsonga people. I'm not going to go deeper into that story because it's a conversation that is still going on. But this, I would say, that the president has spoken right now, it is probably somewhat a response of what was said by something that was said by Sihle Lonzi in Parliament when they were busy on the, I think it's the Rules Committee, about the Palapala Impeachment Committee. So I'm not going to go into that yet at the moment. Before that, we're going to just ask three questions. Can a country have anti-immigrant sentiment without being fundamentally xenophobic? Is the state doing enough to distinguish legal from illegal immigration? What happens when citizens feel ignored? These three questions are very important in the South African context because I think one thing that people do not understand is if citizens feel ignored, they will now look at someone else that they feel like they're getting attention. For instance, the story of foreigners and much came up when there was a lot of stories, there are a lot of things, there are a lot of movements that the Department of Home Affairs is speaking about certain things, and the Helen Suzman Foundation, court cases and stuff like that when it comes to foreigners. So with all that happening, it looked like Black South Africans were starting to feel like they are being ignored. So before we go any further about this, and I'm not going to go deeper into this because I'll need to do more research if I have to speak, but I don't need to speak more about this because I've already spoken about this in one of my previous videos. If you want to hear more about what I said about this topic, you can watch this video here after you've watched this video. So right now, let's talk about Sihle Lonzi's comments in the parliament on the xenophobic attacks in South Africa. I tried to clip the video because I just wanted a small part of Sihle Lonzi talking in parliament, and this was where I watched it. I support his content. If you want to watch this video, I'm going to also add this video in the description so that you can be able to see this video yourself and watch this video in its fullness. So let's hear what Sihle Lonzi said in parliament about the xenophobic attacks in South Africa.
House Chair, the President has a tendency to run away when we speak here. He did it during SONA, and I see he's doing it again. But his colleagues will inform him. We must begin by conveying our heartfelt condolences to the family of Tlamolo Sambo, a 19-year-old young man from Limpopo whose life was brutally cut short in Mossel Bay yesterday. We extend our sympathies to his parents, his sister, Nontlantla, and all those who loved him. It is believed that Tlambulo was a victim of the lawlessness which has engulfed our nation over the past months and weeks. Welcome back, Mr. President. House Chairperson, the President and Commander-in-Chief of the EFF has for many years warned against the normalization of Afrophobic vigilantism and the hatred against Black Africans would eventually cost innocent South African lives. This is precisely because the cousin of xenophobia is tribalism. The cousin of Afrophobia is tribalism. The two are simply inseparable. Mr. President, what should concern you even more as head of state is that these vigilante groups are not operating in secret. They are breaking the law openly in front of law enforcement officers. They are building and assaulting people in front of the police. Why should we not believe that this violence is state-sponsored? Why should we not believe that this anarchy is sponsored by you as the state when crime is committed in front of those who are supposed to be custodians of the law? Where is the voice of the Minister of the Police? Mr. President, when you rise and respond here, you must reiterate and outline what you will be doing to address this crisis before more South African lives are lost. You must never get tired of explaining yourself to the people of South Africa. Mr. President, in your State of the Nation address, you stood before this House and committed to the employment of an additional 10,000 labor inspectors to protect South African workers from exploitation.
So I'm not going to play this video in its fullness, so that to try to avoid my video being taken down or my video getting copyright stricken. So, as you have heard what Honorable Sihle Lonzi said about this topic, so like I said, there are two sides of the story when it comes to South Africa being xenophobic, because there is a side that is saying that South Africa is xenophobic, and then there is a side that says that there is no problem, there is no xenophobia in South Africa. South Africans are welcoming. South Africans are happy with staying with legal immigrants in South Africa. But the reality itself is probably somewhere in the uncomfortable middle that nobody really wants to admit to. And while South Africans are arguing about immigration, thousands of Zimbabweans may be worrying about something much more closer to home. Let's talk about the third story. The third story is about the demolition notices that have been given to thousands of structures that have been erected in Zimbabwe that have been considered unsafe and considered to be unlawful, illegal. Let's look at the story and then we'll get back to that. As you can hear, I cannot bear the lady crying in the background. This is, as you can see here, this is her belongings outside, and this is her house that they built. I think it's a big house from the looks of it. It's a big construction, big investment that a person has done, and it was being demolished. I'm not so sure as to when this really happened, because there's a context and there's nuance behind this. Because when I saw this, really, like the first time when I saw this video, I was really pissed off. Like, to be honest, I felt like, is this rage bait? That was before I went out on my run, and I really wanted to talk about this video. I wanted to talk about this, but the more I went into the story and the more that I said, okay, let's get the story in, like to get as much information as we can get. To, as I said, that this video is just an ad hoc video, it's a reaction video. I'm not really going into nuances because I did not get to do as much research when it comes to this. But I found somewhere on Facebook, on the same Zim breaking news source, there was also a story. Sorry, there was also a story that was posted about 21 hours ago. Let's go to that story and see if we can read some parts of it and get some nuances of it. But anyway, this is the story of it. I'm gonna leave the link in the description, but if you go into the Zim breaking news, you will find this story and you will be able to read for yourself, because it's pretty long, and if I have to read the whole thing, it's gonna be like another 30 minutes, because I'm not a fast reader. Okay, so this story is talking about the Harare City Council has issued demolition notices for thousands of structures across more than 20 suburbs and townships, including Kwazana, Budiriro, Glenville, Marlborough, Belvedere, Greendale, and along the Harare Drive expansion road, saying the properties are illegal because they were built without approval on wetlands, road reserves, school sites, clinic land, and other public amenities. While the government has temporarily halted evictions, requiring for 4 months' notice before any demolitions, the council says it has a duty to inform the public now. Mayor Jacob Mafume has stated that demolitions are only on hold pending consultation with the ministry, but notices have already been served. This is it's an emotional story, because, like, if you can take it, like, from me as a person who is not living in Zimbabwe at the moment right now, I would say there are a lot of people who are thinking of going back home since this shindig that has been happening in South Africa. a lot of Zimbabweans have been thinking of going back home. I think I saw some of them posting going back home, some posting that they, oh, you know what, we need to go back home, especially after a lot of, after the killings and stuff that has happened lately. So there have been, so it's something that is so emotional. Like when I'm looking at it, I got really deflated and looking at it, like really this is something that somebody has invested in, because it is true that this is something that could be true, that it is, I mean, two things could be true, right, at the same time, that people have built illegal buildings or erected buildings in places that are probably not safe for building and stuff like that, but people have invested in this. That is the other thing that is true. People have invested. As you can see, that house looked very big. It looked like a big investment that somebody has made, probably with the money from diaspora or even from the money that they are making while they're in Zimbabwe with this economy. With this economy right now, I do not think that we need in Zimbabwe another Operation Rambachina. Operation Rambachina happened in Zimbabwe, I think that was, about 20 years ago, where a lot of people lost their businesses, their buildings that they had built, tuck shops, and which is spaza shops in South Africa. People had built spaza shops in front of their houses. People had built places where they can do business, or build houses, extensions of their houses, and the government came and started breaking all those extensions that were not approved. Which I know that the law is the law, but at the end of the day, isn't there a better way, like especially when it comes to this, where there are a lot of houses that have been built. There's a lot of houses that have been erected in these places that now they're going to be demolishing. The post talks about around 5,000 of buildings or houses that will be demolished, and we need to understand that this does not only happen in a vacuum. People do not, in Zimbabwe, especially after the Operation Rambachina, people do not just go and build in certain places. There are land barons which were selling land or distributing some land that have been stated to be the land to be developed by people, by residential places, for residential purposes. Isn't there, I mean, it is hard to, especially in Zimbabwe, it is very hard to track and trace and understand ownership of land and stuff like that. We are going to go back to that, but at the moment, we need to go back to where the real conversation begins. Because what happens when people are buying land in good faith? Because there are people who are actually buying land in good faith. There are people who do not just occupy, especially in Zimbabwe. I can attest to that a lot of people who are in these lands that are now being thrown out, they actually bought the land in good faith. But because of certain issues of like what is being said right now, that some places were affected because of the wetlands or road reserves that were road expansions that are going to happen, or land reserved for schools, for clinics, or airport expansion. So it is true, that could be true, but at the end of the day, there are people who were advertising and selling land and actually having sort of a backup from somebody who's probably higher up in the government, and then they were busy selling the land. And people develop these lands and rent to develop these lands, which we'll go back to that. And the other question is, why do ordinary people always seem to carry the consequences? Because this land, I think I saw in one of the posts on Facebook, I couldn't trace it back again to find where it was, because that was before this demolition idea came up. I mean, this demolition story came up in my feed. There's a story that I saw which they were saying that there was a land deal that has been done by the Zimbabwean government with the Chinese. So now they are saying that now the people, the Zimbabwean people now have to suffer. I asked in one of my videos that how are we going to defend democracy? How are we going to defend the administration if the administration is hostile towards us? How are we going to defend them? Is there any way that the government can legalize some of these land developments that people have done, or create some reserves create some housing development? I was talking about reserves because I was getting an idea of speaking about that, because this issue looks exactly similar to what the colonizers did when they created reserves. They created reserves, open lands, and say, you go and stay there. We are taking this land where you have been living, where you have buried your ancestors there. We are taking that land because this land is good for us, and then we're pushing you somewhere else. But in this story, there is no reserves. They are not being moved to anywhere. Why is it not possible that the government can sit down with these people and find out if they can do maybe a housing development, and then they will now move people to those housing development areas? Even if they can say, okay, in the next, I would say, 2-3 years, and then they go and develop a certain part of land where it is like a housing development, and then the people in this land that are going to be moved will be now offered to buy houses in that developed land or to rent from certain organizations so that they can move. That's what they're doing in South Africa. It's a different country. I would say that there are different laws and there are different plans and promises that people have when it comes to land and when it comes to housing. Zimbabwe does not have that in the constitution to give people housing for free, but they could develop land and housing. A lot of people are going to be scared now to even invest in anything that has anything to do with the ZANU-PF or that is anything to do with the land and the government because of this. Because this is hard for people to watch. It's hard for me to even watch that video to the end. I watched it before and I couldn't even watch this video right now on this recording. It is very, very, very hard. People have invested. People are investing right now. I would say that the Zimbabwean government needs to do better. For their own people. Need to do better. Need to stand by their people. Yes, like I said, this could be an illegal thing that is happened. But why can't we do something about this? We cannot afford another Operation Murambadzvina. We cannot afford that right now as Zimbabwe. The infrastructure, the development that we are seeing, the slow development that are happening because people are starting to get faith. People are starting to get faith in the infrastructure, faith in the stability of the country. And then now when something like this starts happening, and then people will now